When the economy screeched to a halt in mid-March, businesses shut down almost overnight, and quickly, millions of workers became unemployed. Within weeks, the government moved to provide trillions of dollars of stimulus relief to workers and businesses throughout the economy.
$1,200 checks to anyone who makes less than $75,000.
This is another $600 a week for 4 months.
Congress approving another $484 billion for loans.
So where does all this money come from? Is it taxpayer funds? Is the government printing a bunch of new cash? As you might expect, there's a lot more to know. Congress can authorize taxes to pay for new spending, but that's not where the stimulus money is coming from. That money is being raised through borrowing. The government expects to borrow a record $4.5 trillion for the fiscal year that ends in September. That's more than 3 times the $1.28 trillion it borrowed the year prior. That borrowed money is being used to subsidize small business payrolls, send checks to households, and offer taxpayers a temporary holiday on making tax payments. The Treasury Department is in charge of the borrowing. The agency borrows by selling Treasury bills or bonds to the 3 main groups of savers. The public sector, like other parts of the government. The private sector, which includes companies or individuals like you and me, and foreign entities. These bills are like IOUs. Someone agrees to buy them, and the government agrees to pay them back with a little bit of interest. In the meantime, the government can use that borrowed money for stimulus to support private individuals and companies or state and local governments.
This year, the federal government will get most of its borrowing from the private sector. And the reason for that is because private borrowers who would normally be competing with the federal government for private saving have basically disappeared.
That stimulus money can make the economy larger than it otherwise would have been. It encourages employers to keep people employed, and it encourages individuals to spend. Here's a hypothetical example. Let's say Congress authorizes $1 billion in stimulus spending. The Treasury would borrow $1 billion by selling Treasury bills. It would then use that borrowed money on the stimulus programs, with the hopes of keeping the economy churning. But it doesn't end there. If the economy keeps moving, households and businesses can keep earning income, and some of that income can be saved. And in the future, they can use those savings to invest in more Treasury bills, supplying the government with more money to spend.
The amount of saving in the economy is not a fixed amount. Federal stimulus can actually result in more people working, more firms having profits, higher incomes than would have been the case if there hadn't been any federal stimulus at all. This is known as Keynesian stimulus, named for the British economist John Maynard Keynes, who first came up with the concept back in the 1930s. The government is not like a family that has a fixed amount and can't borrow more than it can pay back because it'll go bankrupt. Government can, in effect, borrow enough to actually make the economy bigger.
Now, on top of the 3 main sources of borrowing, there's another source too, the Federal Reserve. The central bank is like the other sources, but with a key difference. The Fed can raise funds to buy treasuries by simply printing money.
So when we say the Fed is printing money, we don't literally mean it's firing up the printing presses and creating paper money. Instead, what we mean is the Fed basically clicks a button and credits the Treasury's account with this money. It's electronic money, it's not paper money.
In effect, the Treasury sells a bond, and in return gets brand new money. Right now, the Fed is ramping up its lending. Assets on the central bank's balance sheet topped $6.7 trillion during the first week of May 2020. That gives the Treasury more money to spend on stimulating the economy and other programs. Critics of the stimulus say the government competing with other borrowers for savings will push up interest rates, making it harder for private companies and individuals to borrow and invest. They also say that if the Fed prints money to finance the borrowing, that will lead to inflation and economic turmoil like what's seen in Venezuela and the trillion-dollar notes seen in Zimbabwe.
It's only a problem if they print and they print and they print and those dollars get spent and spent and spent again until all that spending far exceeds the supply of goods and services in our economy. That's when you get high inflation. How will we know that's happening? Well, we probably see long-term interest rates start to rise as investors get ready for the approach of inflation. Then we'd start to see actual inflation rise, but we're not seeing that now.